So we start from saying the names.
Tony?
Tony?
Say your name. Bernard.
Mm-hmm.
Dean. Chris. Mel.
Emma?
Anyone. Tony. G.
Rachel?
Morgan. Ross. Terry.
Mary.
Adrian.
Justin.
And Kat and Bob. Sorry.
You're worse than me.
Aww.
Okay, we'll go through it all again. Can't teach you anything here, and we can't tell you anything. What we do is point toward and ask you to look to where we're pointing to see for yourself. Because it's nothing that can be learned, but it can be recognised, or resonated with. Your innate intelligence, when it hears something that and realises that it is factual, or it sits well with you, or gels with you, you can make it your own then. And it's not like 2 and 2 is 4, 2 and 2 is 4, you've got to learn that. It's something that is natural, because that's all we point to, and all we ever point to is the natural state, as in nature. Look out there in nature, and you'll see nature's earth rolling around the sun, seasons are coming and going, tides coming in and out. It's all functioning quite naturally and effortlessly. There can be tsunamis and volcanoes exploding and floods and droughts and fires and all the rest of it going on. But it always and ever sorts itself out in the long run. Nothing can be added to it, nothing taken away. Our problem is that we've taken on this idea that we are a person, a separate entity, an individual. And where does that word person come from? If you believe you are a person. Doesn't it come from an ancient language, Latin or something like that, a couple of thousand years ago, or whenever it was? Persona, the mask. Pointing out we've got this conceptual image. We've taken on board an image made up of concepts, thoughts, ideas, and put it upon ourselves and taking it to be real. And we're constantly relating to that image, which, when you really look into it, it's an image based on past events, conditioning and experiences. So a dead image we're constantly relating to. And anything that's dead and past is gone can't keep up with life. Because life is ever fresh, ever free, and ever naturally and spontaneously flowing. You can say it's flowing. Call it intelligence energy, for want of a better term. The activity of knowing. Knowing implies intelligence, not your intellect. But intelligence, the same intelligence that's functioning in this universe, the way it patterns, shapes and forms, implies it's suffused with an innate intelligence. An intelligence is innately there, it's already with it. Doesn't have to be acquired, learned or picked up. It's there before, first and foremost, before any idea of the body, mind or thoughts, feelings or emotions or concepts come upon it. If that life essence or intelligence wasn't there, how many thoughts does a corpse have? What can a corpse see, hear or discriminate? Nothing whatsoever. So it must be that intelligence that's fashioning, shaping and forming it into pattern, shapes and forms. In other words, it's a natural activity. Intelligence, energy is an activity. And it's the activity of knowing. Anybody who is not knowing right now, and you've got to say, well, no, I know, I know that I am. I am not unaware, so I must be aware. And is that a static point? Or is it constantly changing? You'll see it's an activity, just the same as the Earth is rolling around the sun right now. While it's facing the sun, this part of it, the side of it's facing the sun, there's light. When it rolls around the other way, there's darkness. And we put those two terms on it, darkness and light. What is light? Isn't it just the absence of darkness? And what is darkness? Isn't it the absence of light? But we've differentiated them by saying it's dark, it's light, it's this, it's that, and the other. And all these things come about because we've learnt words. We've picked up words along the way. Words can be very useful, but because they vibrate, they're a vibration, a movement of energy. They have a look at the words and say they're always vibrating in interrelated opposites. Watch this thinking process that's going on within you and seeing it's constantly vibrating in the opposites. It's either past or future, good or bad. The boundaries, you put it with another word, good, bad, past, future, present, pleasant, pleasant or pain, happy or sad, loving or hating, positive or negative, always in the related opposites. That's how the words function. And of course, as soon as we put those words, good, bad, pleasant, painful, we put the label on it. So instead of thinking that something is good and enjoying it, we like it, and something bad comes up, we don't like it. What if you had to look at it without putting the labels on it, without discriminating it? And recognise it to be just as it is. Like we're not discriminating the day, the light and the night and all the rest of it. It doesn't worry us. We get used to it now. We know it's bound to happen. Winter, summer. We don't like the cold or the way it expresses, or the heat, the cold, or different ways it's expressing. But we know that it's constantly expressing dualistically. And thoughts are doing the same thing, constantly expressing dualistically. Now that's what we point to, is non-duality. What you realise or read in some of the ancient texts or ancient scriptures. Non-duality. They try to describe that by saying it's one without a second. In other words, it's not two. They put that one without the second on because even the idea, even if you've got their concept or idea, there's other than one. That becomes two. And that's the split. That's the seeming separation. But they also tell you that it is one essence, patterning, shaping, forming, and expressing as everything, or one self. There's only one self. It is self-aware. It is self-shining. It's self-realizing. It's self-liberation. It's self-feeling, self-tasting, touching, smelling. It's all one self. But we put this label on the concept of this separate entities. This mask we've got, this persona, myself. What have we done with that? As soon as we say myself, we've taken ourselves to be a separate self. Something separate and apart from the one. And we got immediately into dualism. And we stay there. How did it come about? Well, come about because of the belief we were born. We came into this world. But can any one of you actually remember your birth? When you look at it closely, you can't remember your birth. You don't remember anything until you're about 2.5 years of age. Some might have been a bit earlier, some a bit later, when the capacity of reasoning developed in that so-called human form. And that's a useful capacity that these humans have, the capacity of reasoning. That's very useful. But because it vibrates in the opposites, it's also self-destructive. Because of that same capacity of reasoning, it tells me I'm not good enough, I'm fearful, I'm anxious, I'm unhappy, I'm depressed, I'm guilty or shameful. That's the way it vibrates. And what's dividing it are words. Now, as I said before, and you realise yourself you can't remember your birth. Why? Because you didn't have any words when you were born. Words didn't come upon you until you had that capacity of reasoning at about 2.5. And so you must realise from that that there is no word that is your natural state. Every word you've spoken or ever likely to speak has been picked up along the way. It's been acquired somewhere along the way. And you're possibly learning new words to this day. We've got dictionaries full of words that somebody's spoken or sent one side and they put the meanings into the dictionary. And you can learn new words constantly, and I'm forgetting old words, a lot of them. So that's become our problem. We've learnt words, and we've taken this pattern of energy that's functioning presently and spontaneously to be the primary thought or word, which is I am. Taking ourselves to be this I amness, this body-mind entity. But the I amness is really only the sense of presence. There is nobody who is not aware of being present right now. There is awareness of presence there. Presence is this immediacy, this spontaneous moment, which is not time-bound at all. And it's translated as that thought, I am. So we've given ourselves this label, I, or me, which we've learnt that word, I or me. When we started to speak, from the words we learnt from our parents, who were fussing around us constantly and teaching us words, you little Johnny, you little Billy, you're a good boy, you're a bad boy. You learn this is I, well this is me. And when you looked out there, then you realised or reasoned that doesn't fit little Johnny, what I'm seeing out there. So that can't be I. That can't be me. So it's not I or not me. And as soon as that sense came about, that's not I, that's not me. For the little child, that was the sense of separation. If that's not I or me, then I'm separate from it. And with that sense of separation came insecurity and vulnerability. If there's something out there that the little child sees and he can't resonate or recognise with it, and it's not I, not me, then he's uncertain about it. He can be very fearful about it or anxious about it or unhappy about it. And that's when our problem starts, with that sense of separation. And that's from then on, we're seeking to become whole or complete, because we don't like to feel separate and apart from something. We don't like to be insecure, vulnerable, unhappy. So that's when our search starts. Now our parents have got the same thing. Same thing happened to them. And so they tell you, well, you've got to acquire, to accumulate, to add to, amass, whatever you can to make yourself whole or complete. They don't tell you to look beyond that, look back and see if you were ever separate in the first place. Taken on this sense of separation, but were you ever separate? And if what the ancients tell us is true, it's one without a second, it's non-dual, there's not two. So though there's appearing as two, three and many, it's still only the one. It always has been and always will be the one. But no, we've looked into this idea this conceptual image that I am, Bob is my name, Mum's Bob, I'm an Australian, I'm a good fella, or I'm not so good, I've had a bad childhood, I'm fearful, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. All these concepts or thoughts or concepts or ideas added on to that I to give it some substance. What can you do with I on its own? I. What can you do with it? Nothing at all. So to give it some substance or some independent nature, we've added all these concepts or words on it and built up a conceptual image. An image made up of concepts, words. All a concept is a mental construct, a thought up idea or image. So we've got this conceptual image of what we believe ourselves to be. And now, instead of not knowing what I or me is, we now know me, Bob, is this conceptual image. It's the good fellow or the bad fellow or the introvert or the unhappy person or insecure person. And I've got to become whole or complete. So that's when the search starts. And where do we look? Well, naturally, we look into the Word. Look into the belief or the word we've taken on. We think we're going to find it in words. And that's all the so-called mind is made up of, is words. Show me your mind. You say, my mind. What is the mind if you think you are this mind? When you investigate and have a look, you'll realise there's no such thing out there or anywhere you can say this is mine. That you can put a shape or form on it and give it some concept or image or idea to say this is mine. Because the mind, what we call mind, is nothing but a vibration of energy which vibrates as these words or thoughts and vibrates into images, patterns, shapes and forms. But there's nothing static there that you can say this is mine. But we believe there is. We've taken on the belief and keep reinforcing that belief by adding to it, looking into it, and keep locked into it. Not realising that is the cause of all our problems. The mental activity. As Nisargadatta will tell you, nothing can trouble you excepting your own imagination. A simple statement. But it's pointing to the truth. When you just hear it, oh, that's a good one, that's very good. But have a look into it and question it and take it up for yourself. What is troubling you right now? Is there any problems, any troubles there? What you did yesterday or last week, or what people will think you, or what this or that, or what you are imagining, imaging in, making conceptual images, taking them to be real, taking the word or the image to real, and it's beating ourselves up with the word. And that's what your only problem is, or ever will be. Even Shakespeare, the poet in the 16th, whenever it was, century, told you, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. What are good and bad? Aren't they two words which have been acquired or learned? And aren't they the opposites, representing the opposites? Good is what we like, the bad is what we don't like. But it's neither either good or bad unless we're thinking it so. And what is thinking? Isn't thinking a vibration, a movement of energy, an activity that's going on with you right now? Has that knowing ceased? Or isn't the activity of happening right now in this immediately? So that's all this so-called mind is, conceptual images, made of past events, conditioning, and happenings, events, past, dead images and conditioning. And look at that. Question that. Ask yourself this, what conditioning is there if I don't think about it right now? What can I say is wrong if I'm not relating to some past event or condition or something that's happened previously? If the thought is not there, what can I say about this present moment? In that pause, can you say it's good, it's bad, it's pleasant, it's painful, it's happy, it's sad, or anything at all without bringing the word into it, without bringing the concept or idea or image into it? And is the word or the image the real? Well, have a look at all these words you've learned. Are they real? Take the word water. Can you drink the word? I've got the word, you know what water is, but can you drink it, that word? Can you swim in the word? Will you drown in the word? Will you wash in the word? You really can't do anything with the word. You've got to get to the actual water itself. The word fire, does it burn your mouth? Fire is hot, it'll burn, but does it burn your mouth when you're speaking that word? Can you cook with that word? You can't burn yourself, you can't cook with it, you can't heat yourself with a word. What's this word I or me then? Put that under the same question, same investigation. What's this word I? What can I do with I? Isn't it just a sound, a vibration, which we put a meaning into it, a concept, and taken the word to be real, the sound or the vibration, which is a movement of energy, taken to be something substantial. What have we put onto it? This conceptual image we have about ourselves, this egoic image, this self-centered image. Me, Bob. I am Bob. This is me. This is what I am. I am Bob. This is what I am. So the thought, I am the word, is what I believe myself to be. Because my parents told me, my schools told me, everybody around me telling it, and I kept reinforcing it myself, never questioning it, because nobody pointed out that it needs to be questioned and looked at. Though it's always been there down through the ages, where some people have understood it and pointed it out, where others have heard of it, and that's where the big religions and spiritual traditions have formed around it. And that's where they lost sight of it, because then they give it the idea of some greater power, some other power than than me, or what I am. But when they see it, they look at it and tell you there's only one power. It's omnipotence, it's total power. It's omnipotence, omnipotent, omniscience, total power, total intelligence, total energy, total. It's the one essence that's patterning, shaping and forming and expressing as everything. But we've only taken on the idea of separate. We think one is separate from the other. Instead of seeing it all as the totality, which it is, we put that sense of me as the individual, me as the separate entity, me as the person. And we see everybody around us as separate entities, individuals and persons. But as I say, there are people down through the ages who have seen that it's all been the one essence that's patterning, shaping, forming and expressing as everything. And if it is that one essence, what must you really be? Mustn't you be that essence? And isn't that the great mantra they point out too? Instead of I am Bob, the Australian, the good fellow, I am that. I am that essence. I am that pure intelligence energy, if I want to put a label on it. I am that knowingness. I am that beingness. I am that loving to be. That is Satchitananda, what the Hindus point out, is another term for the one intelligence entity. Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nama, Rupa. Sat is existence. Anyone who is not existing right now. You realise, no, I'm existing. So when you say, I am existing, instead of I am Bob or Bill or whatever your name is, I am existing. I am that existence. I am conscious. I'm not unconscious. I'm not unaware. So I must be aware. I must be conscious. I am that consciousness. I love to be. I must be that loving to be, or the bliss of being, if you like. So I already am that essence, not the persona. It's the persona that is the problem. So that's what we believe ourselves to be. That's what we've taken on, and everything becomes relative to that persona. Relativity is relationship, and relationship or relativity is dualism. Simple as that. Relativity is dualism. So what have we done? What have we done? We've moved immediately into a dualistic concept or idea or image, into something that is an erroneous belief that never existed. There was never absolutely no duality in non-duality. When they point out it is the one essence, patterning, shaping, forming, experiencing and expressing as everything. And it means everything. And you and I and everything else in this manifestation are things. The trees, the flowers, the planets, the stars are all things appearing in that one essence, the empty space, the silence, the stillness. Can something come from nothing? It's all no thing, in which things are appearing. Or can anything appear, something appear in the no thing? And you realise it can't. Something cannot come from no thing. Though it's appearing, it's vibrating and assuming pattern, shapes and forms, it is still only the no thing. So, when you start looking at it, you realise you can't get away from your true nature. Only conceptually. Only through the thinking process. Only through the belief that you are a separate entity. Now that word belief is a word we've learnt. But have a look at that, pick up your dictionary and see what the definition of the word belief is. And see, it's an unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason. Meaning we're accepting what we've been told without questioning it, without reasoning it out. We've taken it on board. What our school, society and our parents and everybody else have told us, it's all unquestioned, without reasoning it out. An unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason, acceptance of an alleged fact, without positive knowledge or proof. We've taken on all these things as facts without positive knowledge or proof. And when you question these things, they start to fall apart under the investigation. Like we believed the earth was flat years ago. Who would believe it today? It's been questioned and reasoned out. And you know that the earth is not flat. We believe that the sea was blue, and it'll still look blue today. And if we don't question, we'll believe it's blue. But go down and get a bucket of blue water out of the sea, you can't, because the sea is not blue. The sky, blue sky, the water in a mirage, the rainbow. Go outside, there appears to be a rainbow in the sky. And when you investigate it, you'll see all it is, the sun shining through the mist. There's a cloudy mist up there. The sun is shining through, and through that shining mist it reflects on the blue background of the sky as the colours of a rainbow. Just like the sun will reflect through a crystal and break it up into patterns of colours on the wall. But look in that crystal, there's no colour in it. Try and grab the colours off the wall, there's no colour there. It all appears to be so, it appears to be real. we've taken on the belief we are this body-mind entity. Investigate the body. Am I this body? We think this body's a separate entity, a person, individual. Innately you know you're not the body. You already know that innately because you're saying my body. Just as I say my house, my car, my coat, my hat, my coat. You know damn well you're not the hat or the coat or the car or the house. Maybe, just maybe, if you look at it, maybe you're not the body either when you say my body. And you say my mind. There's all these thoughts that come up, feelings and emotions, because we give the belief are the mind, you say the mind. Well, show me a thing called mind if you can. I don't see anyone jumping up and saying, this is mind, and pointing it out what you think mine is. Why? Maybe there's nothing you can grasp when you reason it out that you can say is mine. And that'll be a fact, because when you look into this thing called mind, there's nothing there with any substance or any independent nature apart from what we call thinking or thought. And the thinking or thought expresses now as words, concepts, ideas or images. And so, if you believe you are this mind, what image have you got and you think this is mind? And you can't give me anything with any substance or any independent nature that say this is mind. So you must reason from that there is no such thing as mind apart from the way it expresses as thought. Now, if thought is mind and I am the mind, I would be a particular thought. Which thought would I be? Well, the only thought I could be, through a little bit of reasoning, would be I'd be this I thought that I told me I am. Well, have a look at that, investigate that. If you were that thought, I or me, you'd be frightened of losing it, wouldn't you? The thought, if you were the thought wasn't there, that would be the finisher, wouldn't it? But don't you gladly give it up every night when you go to sleep? You gladly and willingly stop thinking, going to sleep, because you don't, you get tired and you go to sleep. But you wake up next morning. What would that prove to you? Wouldn't it prove to you that I'm not a thought? I'm not this reasoning capacity, because throughout the sleep I must have been still breathing, my heart was still beating, my hair and fingernails growing, food was being digested. All these things were happening, but thinking had stopped, unless I started to dream. And then I can have a dream at night. In that dream, what am I doing? All sorts of activities have been going on. I'm taking that dream. It can be in any place at all. It can be in the mountains, it can be in the hills, it can be in a house, be in a car, it can be in the ocean. It can be anywhere that imagined conceptual dream is carried out on. And this body, seeming body, is taking an active part in it, doing all sorts of activities. Yet, when I wake up, I realise the body hasn't moved off the bed, no words have come out of his mouth, and the dream has disappeared. All that activity is gone. It has no reality about it at all. It was just a dream, concept of images. Dream of conceptual images going on, which I've taken to be real. But it disappears when I wake up. And this is a real nightmare or something that I like to hang on. It doesn't hang around for very long. And some dreams I can recall parts of, but the only actuality I've given them is when they're being recalled. But when I wake up into this. And we don't realise that this is a waking dream also. This is a dream also. And the only difference between this and the sleeping dream is this dream seems to continue every morning from where it left off last night. It has a continuity about it, a seeming continuity about it. Not realising it's all spontaneous. So this dream is taken to be real. And we suffer according to that. All that is going on is the conceptualizing it and imagining is going on with the ideas and concepts that are arising. Thoughts are taken to be real. The energy of belief goes into them. And with that comes the fear, the anxiety, the guilt, the shame, the remorse, the unhappiness, the despair, the depression. All the conceptual imaging comes about, and it can be good, loving, positive, and all the rest of it. Vibrates in the opposites naturally, like everything else does. But it's a constant vibration of thought going on. Do you know what they call it in the scriptures? They call it ignorance. Pointing out that we are ignorant doesn't mean that we are dull or stupid. We've got the reasoning capacity, which is very useful. It means we are ignoring our true nature. That's what ignorance is. Ignoring our true nature. Ignoring our reality, our actuality, and focusing into the conceptual image, which we've taken to be real, which our schools, our parents, society have taught us, never investigated, taken to be real, and carrying on with it. That's what needs to happen. Stop ignoring what you actually are. Take it up, investigate it, and see the truth and reality of it. And watch everything settle down into as it is, as it happens to be, as it is. And see where all this psychological fear and anxiety and stress will drop away if it's not given some conceptual image to fixate on. That's what it's fixating on, a conceptual image, a dead image of that, which is taken to be real. And energy has got to be used to keep it real and make it real. And that causes the fear, the anxiety, the stress, the guilt. So me is the cause of all my psychological problems. That is what we call the reference point, the self-centre or the ego. 3 terms on the one thing. Everything is referred to it. Self-centre, this self I believe myself to be, is a conceptual image. And that self-centre is what we call the ego, the conceptual image. And they tell you that in all the scriptures. That's our problem. The only problem we've ever had or ever like to have is a problem of ego, self-centeredness, ego is the cause of all my psychological happening. And the effects of that cause are fear, stress, guilt, anxiety, remorse, depression, jealousy, envy. All these things you can imagine and think of are the effects of the cause. So isn't that what so-called karma is? Cause and effect? What happens if I ask myself the simple question, can there be an effect without a cause? Now, if it's all the result, the effects are all the results of this cause, can there really be an effect without a cause? Well, I don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar to work that out. If you're not relating this cause, this anxiety or this fear, the same drama, some problem, some fear, some anxiety, some stress or guilt, if I'm not relating to that cause, me is the cause of it all. Where can the effect lodge? So you see, your karma, so-called karma, can be done away with by recognising that. Quite simple. The simple way it all functions. So something comes up, see how it works. Something comes up and I relate it to some past event and it's always past events, experience and conditioning. I like this. This is good. And the things we don't like, we want to keep them there. I love this, I want it. We don't want it to go. Not realising, but everything in this manifestation is transient. It's not time-bound, it only lasts a moment, or not even a moment within the time. It's all spontaneous. It's a beginning and ending at the one time. There's no set static point where it starts and finishes. Things are spontaneous. So something comes up I like, and I don't want it to go, not realising that being spontaneous, transient is going to change. And have a look at that. This body you call, you believe that it is you. You haven't got the same body you walked into this room with. It's constantly changing right now. There are thousands of cells dying in it right in this moment. Not one or two, but thousands of them, and being replaced. And each cell in that body is suffused with an innate intelligence, because a liver cell is never going to be a heart cell. A heart cell is not going to be a kidney cell. A brain cell is not going to be a skin cell. Each cell is suffused with an innate intelligence and knows what's necessary to do. And overall, they form this thing we call a body, which is constantly changing, transient. So this thing comes up, and I like it, and we don't want it to go. Of course we don't want things to go. We want to keep them there. But we haven't realised that they're transient. If you realise that for a start off, you're not going to cling to it for too long, because you know it'll change by itself. You're not going to try and alter it, modify it and correct it, work it out in the mind, which we've been taught to do, because it doesn't work. No matter how much you love them, you know how much you want to keep them there, you realise that they're going to leave you, they're going to die, they're going to change. Everything is transient in its manifestation. We don't want it to go. So what do? We resist it there. We'd resist it. We try to keep it there. I've got to keep this one there. I like it. I've got to do it. And we stop it from going or moving along by resisting it. And realise that any resistance you are ever in is conflict. You are in conflict. And conflict means you're in a fight with it. You're struggling with it. Conflict brings about uneasiness, unhappiness, despair, anxiousness, fear. Or another word for those terms, anxiousness, fear, is uneasiness or dis-ease. There is resistance, conflict and dis-ease going on in us all the time while we're focusing into this stuff. The same thing happens when something comes up you don't like. What do we do with that? We don't want this one. We try to throw it out, get rid of it, force it away. Resist it. So there's resistance again more conflict, and again more unhappiness, more disease. So that's what our life is made up of. Resistance, conflict and disease through the belief in a separate entity. There may be short periods when everything goes along smoothly and happily, when you get a taste of your true nature. But it doesn't last, because very soon the thought will come up again. The word that is not the real will come up, and you'll latch onto it and follow it up by another word, and another word, with the buts, the ifs, the whys, the hows, and the whens. But what if, or why, or how, trying to work it out in this conceptual image we call the mind. And the ancients tell you you'll never ever find the answer in the mind. And if you've been looking at this for long enough and you haven't found it, wouldn't you ask yourself why? I've searched for this seriously and earnestly and did every endeavour for years and years and never found the answer. Where have I been looking? And you realise you've always been looking in the mind for the answer. And the ancients tell you quite simply, the answer is not in the mind. You will never ever get peace of mind. Never. And they tell you that That's why they call it the peace is when the mind is not. When you've passed the mind, when you're looking through the mind or beyond the mind or out of the mind. Because there's no way out of the mind. Every way you look will be in the mind. It's only with the pausing of thought. The peace is when the mind is not. That's why they call it the peace that passeth all understanding. It can't be grasped or understood with a concept, with a thought, with an idea. But there is a natural peace there, a spontaneous cognising, where everything falls into place when the mind is not, when in the recognising of your true nature. So you recognise that this ego that we believe in, which is a fiction, we tell you that straight right from the start, it never existed, never can and never will. And you realise that the answer's not in the mind. Ask yourself, which direction have I been looking in? I've been meditating, practicing this, doing this, reading books, going to satsangs, listening to poems. You realise that every direction you've always looked in has always been in the mind. Always. And then you might ask yourself the simple question, well, what way is there out of the mind? And the simple answer might come up, only one way out of the mind, full stop. Stop it. Don't go there. Pause the thought. Ask yourself, that's it. What can I say is right or wrong without a thought? I need to pause the thought to look through it. And you can't deliberately of yourself pause the thought. But the innate intelligence in trying to look beyond the mind or something, looking through the mind or something, will cause that little hiatus, that little gap. When you get the taste of your true nature and realise when you're in deep sleep, you wake up in the morning and say, I had a blissful sleep, that everything was okay in that deep sleep when the mind was not. So look at these things and see. And then that space or that stillness or silence will start to grow. The more you look at it, the more you relax in it, where they say, abide as that. Abide as it means rest in it, relax in it, stay with it. And the Sagadatta will tell you, he stay with the I amness, he called it the I amness. When the I amness he meant was that sense of presence. Anyone who here was not present right now, that sense of presence was within you. How do you translate it? To translate it, you've got to say I am. Well, instead of the thought I am, realise that sense of presence is the I amness. It is the sense of presence itself, not the thought or the word. Stay with that sense of presence. Anyone who is not present right now, not aware of presence, yes, I am aware of that presence right in this immediacy. But there might be other concepts, thoughts or ideas, what about this, what about that, or he's full of shit, or something like that, going on in the mind. But isn't it all taking place in that sense of presence? It's not taking place in the past or the future. You can only recall the past, and the only actually giving you the past is when you're recalling it right this moment. You can only anticipate and imagine the future. And the only time you can anticipate and imagine it is right in this moment. Because if you can't tell me what you thought of a minute ago now, unless you recall of it. Try that out. And you can't tell me what you're going to do or think you're going to do when you leave here or when this meeting is over, unless you anticipate and imagine it. You realise you can't move away from this presence, only conceptually, only with the thinking process. And it doesn't need to be that way. Just a little bit of recognising and staying with it, and coming back and recognising it as frequently as possible. When other things need to be done, they can be done, and the mind can be utilised And the mind is a very useful tool when it is utilised. But what it's done, we've taken the belief as something substantial and real, and it's utilising us. We've beaten ourselves with the word, saying, I'm not good enough, I'm fearful. And the worst one we put on ourselves, after all, I'm only human. We call ourselves human beings. That's the concept of label we got ourselves. If you believe in a God, or a higher power, or some God or something, you'll call God the Supreme Being. So you've got two separate things now, human being and a separate being. What if you took the label separate off it? The label
Supreme.
human off it, and left with just the beingness. Take the word the supreme off it, and just leave with the word being. The supreme being and the separate being. Now take the word separate, take the word human being, and what have you got left? Pure being. Without any label. But now have a look at this. Is there anyone in this room who is not being right now? You can say, no, I'm not being, I wasn't, or I will be. Bullshit. You can't negate your beingness. So you are that beingness without the label, without the word. We've got this habit pattern, and it is a habit pattern, which is reinforced by everybody around us. 99.9% of the people around us are reinforced, except those that have understood it, which are few and in between. So it's easy to get dragged back into it again. But stabilise it. Stabilise it. Stay with it as much of it till the firm conviction is there. I am that. Nothing can throw me off that. And then others, instead of others dragging you back into the belief in being it, naturally they'll see something in you that changes in you and recognise something in you, and you can drag them out of it. So that's what it's all about. That's what we point to. See, this ego is a fiction. We ask you to investigate that and have a look. We say that everybody is seeing right now. Everybody is hearing right now. Isn't that a fact? You'll say, yes, I'm seeing, I'm hearing. Ask yourself this. Does my eye tell me I see? Does your physical eye tell you I see? My eye doesn't say, look at this, Bob. Look at that, that's good. My eye cannot say anything at all. Can yours? Can your eye speak a word or have a thought or a feeling or emotion? It can't. But you realise it is the instrument through which the seeing is happening. Seeing is happening through the eye, and that's translated not by the eye itself, but by the thought, I see. Now that thought, I see, is no longer a pure seeing, because what have we done to it? We've added onto it, I, thee, or Bob, I see. The conceptual image, the egoic image we got, now thinks it has the capacity of seeing. An ego, a conceptual image, now thinks it can see. So the thought I see comes up, it's translated by the concept I see. The same with the hearing. The hearing's happening through the ears. But my ear's not saying, listen to this, Bob. That's good or that's bad. Is yours? Is your ear telling you anything? You're probably hearing this. I hope you're hearing some of these words anyway. Might be too loud. Is it saying, my ear saying, listen to this or listen to this? It's not. But the thought again comes up. I hear. Now, can that thought, I hear, actually hear? Put your hands over your ears and see, hear what you can hear with, see what you can hear with a thought, with your ears blotted off. And you realise the thought I hear is not doing any hearing at all. And the ear itself is not telling you I hear, but the thought's coming up and translating it. And that thought again is not the pure thought. It is the conceptual image I got, based on past events and experience and conditions, that now thinks it has the capacity of seeing and hearing. But can a thought I see actually see? See whether a thought can see. Shut your eyes, look around the room and see how many things you can see in the room with the thought I see. You realise you can't see any of the things in the room with a thought. So this thought I see, this egoic image, cannot see. Put your hands over your ears, blot your ears off and see what you can hear with the thought I hear. And you realise the thought I hear can't hear. The egoic image can't see, can't hear. Anybody who is unaware right now, you realise, no, I'm not unaware. I must be aware. So is the thought, I am aware, is that your awareness? When you realise I'm not unaware, so I must be aware without having to think about it. Is the thought I choose the choice maker? Can the thought I choose anything? We believe we choose our thoughts. Why do you ever have an unhappy, a miserable, an anxious or a fearful thought if you can hear it? The thought I choose cannot choose. So the thought I see can't see, the thought I hear can't hear, the thought I'm aware is not aware, the thought I choose is not the choice maker. So this egoic image, this egoic entity of God, this conceptual image, can't do any of those things. Take the life essence out of that body and you've got a corpse, haven't you? No life in it, it's a dead body. Now can that corpse see? It can't see, can't hear, can't be aware. It's got the organs of sight, they're still there. It's got the eyes, the ears, the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, all those organs are still there. There's no life essence, no animation, no sentience going through it. It's just a dead corpse, not a bit of good to anything. So what's doing it all? Is it the body and the mind, which we've taken believe is doing everything? Or is it that life itself, which is the same life that's out there in the manifestation, rolling the earth around the sun, forming the planets to form, forming all the other patterns, shapes and forms in every country and place in the world, all the insects, all the birds, all of humanity. The same life essence that's doing all of that, no puny entity or ego can ever or will ever do anything. So get these grandiose ideas out of your head that you are running the show or I'm going to change the world. You cannot do anything at all. Anything that you're meant to do or need to do, if you allow it to come up, you'll do it. You'll do it and do it. The living will express through it, and it might be valuable in the manifestation. It might not be. But in the main, it's always beating ourselves up, causing the wars, the anxieties, everything else to come about, the hatred, enmity, fights and everything, because of that self-gratification. We're trying to make that self happy, gratify it, make it complete. What would you ever rob somebody for if it wasn't for some gratification out of it? What would you rape somebody for? What would you do about anything at all? What would you acquire more wealth for if it wasn't for gratification? And have you ever seen a millionaire that's got enough yet? That self-ego is never gratified, can never be content. So it'll go on and on. What is life going to be like if you align yourself or abide in the innate intelligence that's breathing you, beating your heart, growing your hair in your fingernails, digesting your food and living here right now. You've had taste of it when things have gone along smoothly in life and everything has been blissful and pretty well. But you've immediately gone back in the old habit patterns which everybody around you is reinforcing and dragging you back into it. Learn to stay, abide in that life essence that you are and see what life will do, what it will bring you. I tell you, it can be a lot easier than it is when we function with life. That's what I point to. And I ask you to look along those lines, do any questions or any belief, or take up any questions or answers. Or if you looked into a bit, express what you've seen or recognised or understood, which you might say it in a word, some word that some other one here might latch onto, more than what the words I'm saying. But it's up to each and every one of you. Go into it, away you go.
Awareness and I is the same thing, isn't it? For me to be aware, I have to be I. And the absolute,
Yes.
or the
Yes.
note, the that.
Yes, if you I am awareness,
Yeah.
you are the awareness, not I am a person having awareness.
Does it not need awareness and something in order to be? Like, is it not still duality? I and I'm aware of something.
No, that's the person. As soon as you bring the I into it,
Yeah.
you take it to the persona, the subject. The person becomes the subject. I am aware, and the awareness becomes what appears in awareness. You're aware of this, becomes the object. So awareness is divided into subject-object, which is duality. Can there be a subject, I, can there be I am aware without awareness? Can there?
No?
Can there be the object? I'm aware of this without awareness. Well, put it this way, like seeing. You're seeing right now,
Yeah.
and you say, I see. Yeah. I see the people in the room. I see. The I sees become the subject. The people in the room become the object. But what are they contained in? In the seeing.
Yeah.
Seeing has been seemingly divided into subject and object. But can there be a subject without seeing? Can there be a seer without seeing?
It would always be the subject that sees.
But
I have read Tony Parson, and he says that he is no more.
Yeah.
He has no, in other words, he has no awareness, because he says awareness is the glue by which duality exists, and the absolute, or the that with the one without another, it doesn't need to know anything because it is everything.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. You're seeing right now. When you say I see, you know that the seeing is there, don't you? But you're seeing the chair and the subject, you divided it up. And what is indivisible, you divide them up to subject-object. And you take that belief, there is a subject who is seeing the object. There is a subject, there's a thinker who is thinking the thought. There is a feeler who is feeling the feeling. You've divided it up conceptually, but there is just an innate, pure functioning.
It's still a big mystery to me.
To me,
To be the one who makes the second in the one, you know.
you know, just see, what are you? Are you the seeing or the seer?
I'm the seeing.
Right. Seeing is, so you haven't put the subject on it, you are the seeing. You are the thinking. You are the awareing. You are the knowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's going on, and the subject and thing will appear in it, seemingly appear in it, but what are they? They're just vibrating patterns.
So if the subject appears in it, I don't really have to worry about it. I just look through it and continue being.
Well, you know, it couldn't be there. There couldn't be a seer without the seeing. The so-called subject couldn't be there. So the subject is actually the seeing, which you've translated. That's the thinking. There couldn't be a thinker without thinking. That's the division that's dualistic. The seeing, the hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, and thinking are not divided. They're the one essence, patterning, shaping, experiencing, expressing. Everything expresses in that one essence, as the one essence. And their appearance, that's all it is, appearing. It's only seemingly so.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal manifestation. And the definition of phenomena is that which appears to be, or seems to be. The water in a mirage, there seems to be water in the mirage. When was there ever any water there? There never was. But it appears to be. When is there ever a separate entity? There never was, but there appears to be one.
I remember Nisargadatta says in his book, the Absolute does not need to know who it is.
What can you enter
to the Absolute, this does not exist.
Yeah. What can you enter the Absolute?
What I can say about it?
What can you add to it?
Add.
Add on to it?
Nothing.
Nothing. Not the smallest particle. What can you take away from it?
Nothing.
So it's always the Absolute.
Yeah.
Same with the great perfection. They call it the great perfection. What can you add to perfection? Nothing. What can you take away? So it's the great perfection right here and right now, as you are, as it is.
Sorry?
Everything is as it is.
Yeah.
What is means unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. No preference, no comparison, no partiality. Just isness.
Yeah.
Isness is part of the verb to be. It's just pure being.
Yeah.
Satchitananda is being, knowing, loving to be. Existence, consciousness, bliss. And are you being right now?
Yeah.
You're conscious right now?
Yeah.
Happy to be right now?
Sorry?
Happy to be right now?
In between.
So you are existing consciousness and happy to be. You are that. Satchitananda.
Yeah.
And the nama rupa, the name and form we put on it, are Maya, our illusion. All these names and labels, it's all the one essence.
Yeah. Thank you.
You are that.
Yes, I hope I stayed.
You've never been away from it, even though you might believe you have been. But it's always been the basis of every thought, feeling and emotion you've ever had or ever likely to have. We haven't remembered, we've forgotten along the way.
I'm aware of it.
Yes, you're not aware of it, you are aware of awareness itself. You are the awareness.
Yes.
You are the absolute.
Yeah.
You are the totality. But we break it down, we say, I am the person. You've broken yourself down in a little isolated thing that you think is separate apart from everything else.
Like, I understand through thinking I can't ever reach it. I have read your book many times, the teachings of your teachings, which are, as you say, no teaching, it's just exposing the truth. And I'm very familiar with all that, but I can't get rid of myself. And I sense that by resonating with you, with your presence and with your nothing, or oneness, that it happens sometime on its own, since I can't do anything.
It's already there. It's always been there. It's been obscured by the conceptualizing. When you call it myself, you call it my car, my house, my coat. Are you the coat?
Yeah.
Are you the car?
No.
Are you the house?
No.
Well, you're not the self either, because there's only one self. And it's self-aware. It's self-knowing. You are self-aware right now. You are self-knowing. It's self-shining. It's self-presence. It's one self appearing and expressing as everything.
Yeah.
It's expressing as the sun, the stars, the sky, everything. As are expressions of that self. No individual or separate self.
Yeah.
We've lost sight of it, that's all. Take your stance there.
Sorry.
I say take your stance or stand there, that you're already that.
Yeah.
Always have been. That is all there is. And don't all the scriptures and statements tell you, I am that?
Yeah.
It doesn't say I am that person, I am that individual. It says I am that essence.
Mm. Yes. I am that.
Good. Don't forget it.
It's great.
Good.
So the subject and object basically are the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, subject.
Would it be fair to say that or not?
Subject what?
Subject and object are the same thing.
Yeah, it's the one essence appearing as everything.
That's right.
It's seemingly divided.
On one end it becomes the subject, and the other end it becomes the object.
You know, I try to explain it. No one-ended stick. Each stick has always got two ends to it. One end might be thin, the other thick, you know. But there's always two ends to the stick. It's the same with this. There's two ends to, when the conceptualised, there's two ends to everything, but it's still the one essence.
And it's not really that the subjects and objects are the same, it's just that they are arising simultaneously. Like you have the space or capacity of seeing, and the subject which is seer and the object which is seen, they arise simultaneously.
Well,
Like
they're the same thing. Then
they're not the same, but they're one. They're different, but they're one.
yeah, they're arising as two, but they're always one.
Yes, they're one essence, but they're not exactly the same. I mean, subject cannot be its object. Subject is always the subject. It's pure subjectivity. You cannot make an object of the subject. That's why the essence cannot know itself in any other way than dreaming itself to be the other. So the one essence is dreaming to... That's why it's such an impenetrable dream. That's why it feels like there is really a location here. There is really someone here. Because that's the only way for the oneness to experience the otherness. It wants to fool itself into the idea that there is a location, that there is, because the eyes are seeing from here, not from any other point. So there is that illusion of entity there arising with the sense of location, which comes from the location of senses. Camera is here, the eyes are here, the skin is here. But this is a dream. Once it is understood to be a dream, it's not a problem anymore. Because even though it appears as there is a location, the understanding of the knowingness that everything is just a pure presence and the phenomena arising and disappearing in that presence, the body is arising and disappearing. As Bob says, the cells, the body is changed since we walked into this room. So it's just another phenomena. Seeing and the content of seeing is also another phenomena. They're just passing phenomena. So whatever comes in time, whatever has beginning and an end, is just a passing phenomena. It's just a wave of the ocean. It's not the ultimate reality.
So you're also saying really that there's no value difference between the two, which is kind of part and parcel of what Kat was saying, that
Yeah.
there's no it's like excitement and fear, they're both heightened energy, so in a way there's no value difference in that aspect. That
Yeah.
might have been what he was getting at.
Yeah, that's right. The only meaning that we give to things are the meanings that come from the computer, from the computing, calculating, comparing, partiality, comparison, and what else? What was it?
Preference, partiality, or comparison.
Yes, yeah, that's the reasoning capacity, which also the mind, and I love that when you point out how the time is mind. The mind, the time, they're all concepts, they're all ideas, because there is no time apart from the mind. There is no time in here, right now. It's all the sensory information plus the memory, which is only a mental construct, and the imagination of future, which is also just a mental construct. It doesn't have any real existence apart from the imagination. So all past and all future is just the sphere of the mind. And it's beautiful. It just makes the whole dream, it makes it four-dimensional, it makes it rich and deep and beautiful. And it makes the purpose of the great intelligence or the oneness or whatever we want to call it to actually fool itself effectively into the idea of being the other and experience itself as the other, and see itself in the images of the multitude and diversity. But knowing that this is all passing phenomena, because it all exists in time, which means it exists in mind, only in the mind, because time is mind. So whatever has the beginning and an end is the mind. The bodies, the trees, the walls, the planets, the galaxies, they're all mental constructs that were believed into existence. And this is not to say that they don't exist. They neither exist nor not exist. They just appear. And how beautifully. But knowing the truth, and the truth will set you free. So the sky will still appear blue or black at night, and the sea will appear blue or black or whatever. And it can be enjoyed and it can be appreciated. But we know that neither sky nor sea have any color.
That word ignorance, Bob, I think is great. You know, for myself for a long time, I interpreted the word ignorance when applied to self as being demeaning, like I was either stupid or not very bright, or and that was just a conceptual idea I had of that word, you know. But if you actually just alter it ever so slightly, ignorance or ignore essence, and that's what we do. We completely ignore that essence. Yeah? And as a so-called human being, the only tools that we have to recognize that essence, if you like, is seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. And then there's the sixth one, which is thinking. But we don't get that instrument is actually another sense organ. Yeah? We've learnt to identify with whatever it is that rattles on between our ears. So all of our attention gets normally focused on one sense organ, which is the thinking. Yeah? Now I can't choose to smell or not smell. It's just there. Yeah? I can't choose to see or not see. It's just there. Hear or not hear. I can't, there's no choice over that. Those things are there and just happen. And it's the same over this instrument that we've got here, you know. And all of our attention gets placed on this at the expense of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. We ignore that. Like we really do ignore it, you know. For those five senses to be absolutely and completely wide open all at the one time, you're absolutely present. Can't be anywhere else. And it's so amazing, but we just don't go there. You know, all of our attention is focused in here on this one sensory organ, yeah, and then there's this built-up imagined identity that gets created in here, you know, that I am. There's a person here, you know, and from my own experience with that, what I failed to see for a very, very, very long time, was that because I was aware, because I could see things, so I was grasping this on an intellectual level, yeah? Because I could see stuff just happens. I could see that. Intellectually I could see that, yeah? I could see that thoughts just come and go. I could see I can't stop them. You know, if I could, I would, you know. I can't stop them, yeah? So just, stuff is just happening, yeah? There's a feeling may come up, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm aware that there's a feeling there, or there's an energy in the body if I'm not going to label it, because after all, I'm a good non-dualist. I'm not going to label that, you know. But the one thing I failed to see for a very, very long time was that there was still me sitting there claiming ownership of being aware. It was still there. That's what was keeping me stuck, if you like.
Yeah, see, it's my problem too.
Yeah, yeah. So what I came to see was exactly that, and it's so simple. It was really so simple.
Yeah.
So there's an identity here that sits really, really, really close. I don't know how else to explain this, but it sits really, really close. Yeah? And we don't recognise it, and we don't see it. Even though we've come now, if you like, to see that thoughts just come and go, and there can be a nightmare in there, or there can be good times in there, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, we can see that. We don't take the investigation of the me any further than that. Any further than, okay, yep, thoughts come and go. That's why I get affected. Who gets affected?
Yeah.
What gets affected? Yeah, with that understanding, which is that needs to be seen, absolutely. But there's still an entity here which is so close that we wear it.
Yeah.
We can't see it. We really can't see it. It's just like when we first come into this. Yeah? It can take a while to get a gap, or even, if you like, some separation or awareness around the fact that thinking happens, and it just happens. And after a while, you kind of get a bit of a gap between that's aware of the thinking that happens, instead of like wearing everything that goes on in our head. Yeah, so that happens. Then there needs to be a gap that gets created. You need to go looking for that I that's sitting there, that me that's sitting there, claiming ownership of that presence, claiming ownership of that awareness, claiming ownership of that aliveness, because that's all that's happening. Yeah, and that needs to be looked at. That's when the real search happens. See, everything prior to that is coming to understand and see what we're not. It really is. Yeah? Okay. I'm not all that stuff that used to rattle around in my head. Yeah? And I'm not doing it. It's just a passing show that just floats through awareness, if you like. Yeah? So that, I just saw that. And I didn't do anything. It just dawned. I just saw that was indeed what was happening. Yeah? Hang on, this is still, like I would say, look, I totally get all this. From an intellectual perspective, I absolutely, totally get all this. And now I don't know where else to go, because the truth is, I get it all, but I still feel like I'm here. I still feel like there's a me here. Where the hell do I go? Like, I don't know where to go with that, you know. And that's because it was sitting so close, and I didn't realise that what was actually happening was when I started to become aware of thoughts and I started to become aware of stuff that was just happening, I claimed ownership of that awareness. That was me that was aware of thoughts, or that was me that was aware of stuff that is now just happening and just occurring and spontaneously popping into existence, etc. Yeah? So that had to be found. Like, what is that? What is that? Yeah? Is it something? Does it have substance? Is it an actual thing? What is it? You know, or does yeah, because the thought would come up. Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah, I can see my thinking. That was just a thought that came out. You know, and what gives us, or what creates this so-called self-identity is nothing but thoughts, and only that. Like literally, only that. So
and
what
from there, it goes to the head and controls the senses. And
it thinks it does.
That makes it so hard then to.
It thinks it does.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually do anything. It can't do anything. It can't create anything. Can't stop anything. Can't manifest anything. It can't do anything. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's just a thought that floats through. That's what Bob was saying. You know, can you quench your thirst with the word water?
Yeah.
No. Does the word fire burn your mouth? No. Yeah. They're just floating descriptions that float through, and that's all that is it's describing something in word, just in a word. And the problem is we take the description to be the actual, and then because we take the description to be the actual, we become it. And the description might be, I feel stuck, I feel like I'm still here. Yeah, and with that, I'm still here. With that, because we believe that, and it's only ever a passing phenomenon. It's only ever words and sentences that flow through, or images that flow through, and then we'll even give descriptions to the images that float through our head. Oh my God, they're just images. They're not even real. They're not a real substantial thing. Yeah. So that, what I first started with is ignoring our essence. Totally and completely, we ignore that.
Yeah.
You know, the capacity to have the 5 senses, even the 6th, yeah, when that becomes vacant, if you like, the capacity to have all of those senses wide open at once can't be done by a me. Can't be experienced, rather, by a me.
Yeah.
It can focus on one at a time. And that's about it. That's all it can do. And that's why we miss this essence, is because we're trying to grab it, or we're trying to understand it with the concept of a false construct of a me there. Yep. In the absence of me, when duality completely drops and stops, there is only absolute essence. And in that absolute essence, because it's not split, it's non-dual, yeah, everything opens. That is often referred to as awakening, being awake. But see, when the me or the intellect gets hold of that, because it can only focus on one sense organ at a time, it kind of runs through it, goes, yeah, I'm seeing, I'm hearing, I'm tasting, yep, I'm touching, I'm smelling, big deal. Yeah. Like really? Yep. So? But it can't experience all of them being wide open at the one time. It can't.
No human can.
No. Well, no me can.
Yeah.
Yeah? It can't. Yeah? Or no thought can. Or no imagined me can. But in the absence of the me, in the complete absence of the me construct, it all opens. It all opens. So I just saw that. I just saw that this last little vestige of meanness, if you like. I saw the very, very last thing that it was hanging on to. And it was the last thing it was hanging on to. And everything else that the conceptual Terry was hanging on to prior to that last little bit, everything that was hanging on to wasn't real. It was a concept, it was an idea, it was a belief, it was a judgment, it was a whatever. None of that was real. And the reason I got so terribly stuck at that end point was because the last thing it was hanging on to is real. And it interprets that as, if me goes, I'm going to die. Why? Because me absolutely believes it's this essence, it's this life force. Yeah. And there's the block. And that's why fear often comes up. When you get really on that razor edge, when you get really, really close, we kind of, we don't really want to go there. And people often express it. I expressed it. But what will become of me? How will I live? How will I function? Will I recognise people? Will I know people? I had no idea what the actual experience was going to be, what it was actually going to be like. Yeah? So the very last thing that it hangs on to is, I am aware. I am seeing. I am present. And it's not the eyes seeing or presence or hearing, knowing. The eye doesn't own it, or the me doesn't own it at all. It's just an idea or a belief that me is owning that sense of awareness, present. After all, I'm present. I'm aware. Yeah. Whereas the truth is, there's just presence, and there's just awareness, and there's just seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, and all of that goes on without the me. It all goes on without the me. The me steps in and goes, this is mine. This is my presence. This is my awareness. This is my aliveness. This is my beingness. The last thing that it clings on to, because intellectually it can go, yep, I get all this. I see it.
Intellectually it's easy, but in actual living this, it's the most subtle, complicated, or not complicated, but most subtle and difficult thing to look totally through, like you look through it, you know. Yeah.
So maybe look there. But to look there, what I had to do was the same thing that I did when I first got involved in this. I first had to become aware that thoughts just happen. I'm not responsible for them. It just happens. There's a show that goes on in here, or wherever it goes on, and it just happens all by itself. And it took a while to see that and accept it. But in the seeing of it, you absolutely accept it. In the seeing of it, you accept it.
Yeah.
You don't kind of accept it and kind of go along and hope that it's going to make sense. In the seeing of it, the acceptance comes, because it's your seeing, it's your awareness, it becomes your truth. So the same thing has to apply to that me, that identity that is now sitting there claiming ownership of being here. This is mine. This is my awareness. After all, it's me that's now become aware of thoughts that come and go. You see that trap?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you do is go looking for that. Go looking for that last vestige of an identity that's sitting there. Go looking for that, just like you did at the beginning, when you just started to, when someone said to you, you're not responsible for your thinking. Like when somebody said that to me, I said, you're an idiot. What do you mean? If I have to be responsible for my thinking, yeah? But on investigation, you see you're not. Yeah?
Yep.
So it's go looking. That's really, when you kind of get that close, that's when the search really happens.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Yeah, that's when the search really. Prior to that, all we're doing is just coming to understand what we're not. Well, that was my experience anyway. It can be different for others, but that was my experience, you know, and that was kind of the road that Bob took me down. Yeah, come to understand what you're not. Are you this? Are you that? Are you doing this? Is there blah blah blah? Yeah, and I came to see. Yeah, look, I'm not any of that. But that last little look,
Yeah.
like really, really now, really look. And if you just go to, who is that? What is that? Where is that? And all of your attention is there. That's the only thought that will come up. Who is that? And it gets quiet. Really gets quite quiet, yeah? What is that? Already it starts to quieten down. Just purely on that investigation, mind starts to quieten right down, yeah? Go looking for that and see what you find.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thank
Well,
you.
Where did that go? Where did that go?
Cat.